Well, ladies and gentlemen, you might think it's cold right now, but I can guarantee you it is going to be a lot colder next week. Time is 8:09 p.m., and it is January 13th. Welcome to another update of Greg's weather, and welcome to Michigan winter, because it is here, and it is going to make an impact over the next week or two. I'm not talking snow in this case, really, although we will see some snow. What I'm really talking about is the potential for cold, some very cold air that's going to make its way through and keep that snow on the ground for a little while longer. You can see the Climate Prediction Center's experimental model here that kind of depicts the potential for just cold temperatures, hazardous temperatures to your health, and you can see that the southeast United States is under a high risk for hazardously cold temperatures. Okay, and you can see that it actually extends to the Florida Panhandle. So hopefully none of you are taking a vacation to Florida to escape the cold, because you'd probably have to go all the way down to the bottom of it in order to escape this cold. So high risk, again, meaning we're going to see some pretty stinking cold temperatures down there. And the moderate risk is also present outside of that for portions of Michigan and the Upper Peninsula. And part of the reason for that is mainly because we have the lake. The lake tends to keep us a little bit warmer because the water surface temperature is usually a bit warmer. But also what this cool weather will do is it will help the record warm lake temperatures to sort of cool down a little bit. Might help to moderate that activity and also regulate the temperatures there as well. So you can see that the slight risk extends all the way back into the western United States for hazardous temperatures. So this is going to be a impactful air mass, Siberian air mass, that makes its way through and keeps things nice and cold for much of the eastern continent of the United States. So again, this is being well advertised, I guess, on many different platforms about this below average potential. And I mean, the claims that they're making are not all unfounded. I will say that. There is potential that we will see some very cold wind chills. Could be the double-digit kind of sub-zero wind chills. Okay? I'm not entirely sure where that's going to be or exactly how intense that's going to be just yet. But we do know that this cold air mass is coming, and it is going to pack a punch in terms of cold air, and the air will most definitely hurt your face. So make sure to have gloves, hand warmers, nice warm boots, and a handy scarf would come in handy with that as well. There's a couple safety tips we'll talk about in just a minute as well. So, interestingly enough, I thought I'd take a look at Alaska real quick to see what they were dealing with in terms of this cold temperature. They're actually above average. So that is an interesting, unique little flip-flop. And I mean, it has to do a little bit with the La Nina pattern that we're in right now. But they are likely going to see above average temperatures. Meanwhile, we are going to ice over down here in the continent of the United States. So, interesting little piece of information there. But let's talk about the short range first of all, because right now we are dealing with a few winter weather advisories across portions of western Michigan and the Upper Peninsula for the potential for some lake effect snow. Western Michigan's probably going to see 3 to 5 inches of snow. There are some places in the Upper Peninsula that could exceed potentially 6 inches of snow for some places. So we're going to talk about that right now. You can see the HRR model right here depicting the snowfall that makes its way through. You can see that the lake effect snow machine begins to ramp up gradually from north to south. It begins in the Upper Peninsula, and as this cooler air mass makes its way in, it'll start to interact with the lake, the warm waters of the lake. And again, once you get that temperature difference right there, that 23-degree temperature difference, which again, it's not necessarily a full 20-degree temperature. Well, it might actually be a 23-degree temperature difference from the surface aloft. That is when you start to see the potential for lake effect snow. And in fact, there's going to be a little bit of instability over the lake too. Cape value is around 100, which is rather interesting. Again, that has to do with, again, the warm surface. But you can see that lake effect snow will become a little bit widespread across southwestern Michigan, likely going to prompt a few closures of schools tomorrow morning. Not sure exactly where, or I don't know. The further south you go, south of Kalamazoo County, the less likely you get. And the further north you go of, say, Newaygo County, you're getting less likely in that case as well. But you can see the lake effect snow machine does ramp up on tonight into Tuesday, throughout the day on Tuesday, and then it gradually bands up a little bit more across portions of the Upper Peninsula and Michigan on Wednesday. So what are we talking about with this in terms of snow totals? So snow total accumulation, again, not going to be the most impactful lake effect snow event we had. The Upper Peninsula is going to see quite a bit, and places in northern Michigan will see quite a bit with this lake effect event. You can see greater than 6 inches. Some places might even see a little greater than a foot. That comes into question there as well. But you can see that western Michigan, places with more populated cities across this area, likely not going to see as much snow as other instances where we've had lake effect snow events. There are maybe some isolated instances where we see greater than 4 inches of snow or locally higher amounts greater than 5 inches. But really looks like generally a 3 to 5 inch lake effect setup for much of western Michigan at this current moment. So again, that is in the short range. That's the next 48 hours. Now let's break it down and talk about what we have coming up within the next week or week and a half or so. So we're going to start with the temperatures because that's kind of the key story here. Okay, it is going to be cold, and it's going to be some impactful cold. Okay, so let's go to the current time, which is around here. Okay, you can see temperatures are in the teens, which follows up. It follows up what I'm observing right now, 16 degrees outside of my house in Southwest Michigan right now. You can see that places in Indiana and Ohio might be dealing with temperatures in the lower teens, and then you go up to the Upper Peninsula. You can see that sub-zero air temperatures are actually settling their way in. That lake is going to help to keep things a little bit warmer. I mean, take a look at this as we approach the Wednesday time frame. You have places in Indiana and Ohio that might even be reaching the sub-zero range. That cold air mass is really beginning to settle over the Great Lakes region. However, thanks to that warm lake that we will be having across portions of Michigan and northern Indiana, northern Ohio, temperatures will stay a little bit warmer. You might even have some temperatures that stay in the upper teens to mid-20s. So that will be something that will be of benefit to those of you that live in Michigan. But that Arctic air mass will make its way through. It'll keep things chilly in a lot of different places. And then notice here as we get into Thursday, warm air starts to make a little bit of a comeback. We actually start to see temperatures rise above freezing in some places, and that will contribute to maybe a little bit of snowmelt. How much snowmelt? Not entirely sure just yet, but again, that snowmelt will occur. Again, you probably still have some snow on the ground by the end of that, but then the cold front once again will make its way through. Might be a little bit of snow with that. There's still some questions as to what we will see in terms of winter weather as this thing makes its way through, but then that cold air mass, and look at those temperatures go down as that by the time we get to Tuesday morning is about right here. You can see that pretty much everyone in Michigan, Indiana, Ohio is dealing with sub-zero air. And some places in the Upper Peninsula, based on this model, are actually seeing double-digit sub-zero air. I do remember a day where it was like that up near Boyne City. So again, it's not going to be a surprise if that would happen again in that particular region. But you can see this will have a lot of impacts. I mean, look how far south this cold's getting. It's getting all the way down to the coastline, where temperatures are getting sub-freezing even in the Florida Panhandle, which is not very common this time of year. And as you get down to southern Florida, temperatures are going to be in the 60s. So you could just kind of see the broad scope of impact that this cold air mass is going to have. It's really surging in, and it's going to bring a lot of several days of potentially cold air through much of the remainder of January before we start to see a potential warm-up once again. So again, we're getting into the long range here, so I don't want to go too far into it, but there's going to be some interesting things to watch out for in terms of the next several, and I mean, here again, the return of a cold air mass. This is a long range, so we don't want to get too short. We definitely don't want to say anything about this just yet. But let's go to the feels-like temperatures. Again, wind chills are going to have a heavy impact here. Can also cause frostbite relatively quickly. But as we see that cold air make its way through, and then we get that Arctic air mass making its way in, look at the cold air that filters in afterwards. Notice, what are our wind chills at? They are at the double-digit range right now based on this model output. Now, could that change within the next several days? Absolutely, it could. But again, the confidence is there that that cold air mass is still going to make things feel bitter cold. Look at Texas. Feels like the 20s and even the teens. The Florida Panhandle feeling like the teens based on what is being shown by the Euro model. Now again, this is 180 hours out. So the raw model data is going to change a lot. It will probably trend a little bit warmer as we approach the actual day. But still, it's a pretty good signal of cold air. And that is something that we are going to keep our track on, and that's why the Climate Prediction Center is like, yeah, we probably should keep an eye on this because it's probably going to bring some impactfully cold temperatures. So, good thing to keep in mind. Now, let's take a look at what in terms of snow potential we are going to see. There is going to be several rounds of lake effect snow possible as we get that cold air making its way through. So this is not really a surprise. You get that burst of warm air that makes its way through with that low pressure system coming in. And then we're watching this system right here. If it produces some snow over the weekend in cross portions of Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio, we could see some of that stuff accumulate, and then that cold air mass begins to filter its way in. And as it does, the lake effect snow machine is going to, in fact, ramp up again. we'll have some moisture that this will be able to interact with, and you can see the lake effect snow remains kind of persistent over that time frame that this cold air mass comes through. You got another low pressure system that might make its way in as we get into the long range, but again, we're not really going to speculate this far out. But you can see that that cold air mass is really going to rule our weather through much of the remainder of January. And potential for snow accumulations, again, don't take these numbers at face value. There is going to be potential for some decent snow accumulations associated with the lake effect and maybe some winter or some winter systems that make their way through. But we don't want to go too far out. I would just say for certain know now that the potential for this much snow over the next 48 hours is probable. So that's the thing we are looking to keep in mind. But again, cold air is going to be making its way to the Great Lakes region. So again, what should you do to prepare? Make sure to have all of your snow gear ready. Make sure to check your car's antifreeze, the tire pressure. Again, these things are kind of important when the air gets cold like that. Even maybe invest in some electric hand warmers. Those will come in handy too. But always good to practice good winter safety. So you can check out the National Weather Service's website. They have information about that regarding safety as well, and what it looks like when someone is dealing with hypothermia, when their body temperature goes down, which can be quite serious and it's kind of cold. So just some things to keep in mind, and make sure to stay safe as this cold air makes its way through. Make sure to subscribe and stay updated. There's potential we may have some days to go out and chase, especially if we see lake effect snow in the manner that we could post this week. So it's something to keep in mind. But thanks for watching, everybody. Stay warm, stay safe, and I will see y'all later.